Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon by Rabbi Gordon Bernat-Kunin.
Ariel and Ethan, Mazel Tov, and I wanted to gather some learning today and share it with the whole Kahal, but thinking about the joy that we're experiencing and about to experience. This is for the Shabbat table, okay? Occasionally when I'm feeling a bit insecure about the fact that there are slightly fewer Jews in the world than Catholics, I believe it's 1.4 billion Catholics and somewhere around 15.8 million Jews, I remind my much beloved Catholic neighbors that when it comes to the number of holidays, it's not even close. In chapter 23 of this week's Torah portion, Amor, there's a description of Shabbat in the holidays, which I think provides us with one way of telling the narrative of the Jewish people. And to my mind, I would say that every single holiday we have is part of an endless spiral curriculum of Judaism. And we could really dig into each one of them, God willing, until we're 120, and we wouldn't even come close to getting to the depths of what is there. Every holiday, as I see it, has a past, a present, and a future. The past is what we remember, the present is what we celebrate or observe, and the future is how each holiday presents us with an imperative. Namely, how does the holiday challenge us to act or grow into something or someone more godly than we currently are? This morning, I want to focus on the past, present, and future of Shabbat. So I'm going to start with the past. On Shabbat, what is it that we remember? Many things, but if we look at the Friday night Kiddush, as we enter Shabbat, we remember first Zikaron L'Maaseh Reshit, the work of creation of the world. And second, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, the exodus from Egypt. And one way of applying this would be to say that when we think about God's creation, as we're entering from the week into Shabbat, we can remember that we didn't create this world, and that during the week we are co-creators of the world, but on Shabbat we are creatures of the world. In Buber's language, as Shabbat enters, we remember not to treat the world or nature instrumentally as an it, as an object or a means or a tool. When we remember that we were freed from Egypt, we remember that leaving Egypt was not our own doing alone. It was a gift, and we again think about how we are not to treat other people as an it, as an object, as a means, as a tool for our own satisfaction or gain. And finally, when we remember, we imitate God. On Shabbat, God modeled for us perhaps the most difficult task in the entire Torah. More difficult than creation itself, or any of the miracles of creation. Namely, how difficult it is to cease creating or mastering creation or mastering other people, to hold back from creation and to say, despite all the dignity of work that we engage in, we need to be able to say, Dayenu, it's enough for now, we'll get back to it. Secondly, what is the present of Shabbat? how do we celebrate, observe, practice Shabbat? So I'm going to just suggest a few components. I'm going to start with the loftiest, Heschel. Heschel writes in the Sabbath, the higher goal of spiritual living is not to amass a wealth of information, but to face sacred moments. Now, what does it mean to face sacred moments? If we had a lot of time, I'd put you in Chavruta right now and have you try and figure that out. But since we don't, I'm going to share a story that I think might be instrumental or instructive for our Chatan and Kala on the brink of entering marriage. And it's a story of a really close friend of mine. We shared an apartment, and he used to talk to his fiancée on the phone. And after overhearing half of these conversations, I made a sign which I put on the bookcase and I would take out just for these moments. And the sign said, "Watch problem-solving boyfriend." Facing sacred moments might be exactly the opposite of being a problem-solving boyfriend, because it involves attentive listening, presence, responsiveness, being there with your whole being. I would say that this practice of Shabbat, of facing sacred moments, is transferable to so many different areas of life, like friendship, parenting, studying a Jewish or any kind of text, and even attending a shiva. Second, practicing Shabbat requires the capacity. If you want to be able to face the sacred moment, then you need to be able to pronounce or say a sacred no in order to pronounce a sacred yes. The ability to set limits, resist distractions, silence technology, push away the incessant claims of productivity in order to be truly committed, to be all in. Those are the demands of Shabbat. The sacred no enables the sacred yes. And finally, I'm going to say a practice of Shabbat is about hospitality. It's about creating or co-creating joyous spaces of meeting and meaning, which bring family, friends, neighbors, and strangers together within places of warmth and welcoming, connection and conversation, celebration and delight, laughter and singing and play. This is an exquisite, rare experience that our people has received as a gift from our tradition. And I would say that we shouldn't hoard or squander this rare gift, for we have the capacity and the responsibility to share it with others. Finally, the future of Shabbat. Shabbat is often called a taste of the world to come. On Friday night, in the Amidah, we read, "You sanctified the seventh day," and it's hard to translate this, "for your name." The tachlit, maybe the end, the purpose, the pinnacle of creation. And if you play with the words a little bit and you have the idea of "for you," the lishmecha, you can say that sounds sort of like lishma, which is doing something for its own sake. And I would say that Shabbat is about, once again, transcending the instrumental, living not for an ulterior purpose, but rather lishma, for its own sake. To understand this idea of lishma, I want you to think for a moment about all the things there are in this world, which if you had infinite wealth, you wouldn't be able to buy them. And I would say that these things include real friendship, a love of nature, a love of sports, a love of music, a love of learning, a love or a connection to your soul, a connection to God. None of these things can be purchased. They are spiritual practices that may take a whole life to develop. On Shabbat, we live as if the world is completed. We don't ask for things. Shabbat is a preparation for the world to come. Or, to make that a little more practical, you could say Shabbat is practice for retirement. Okay? Because the spiritual demands of living Lishma prepare you to be able to shift the productivity that you were so deeply focused on to a different way of life. In our Parsha, Shabbat comes before the holidays, and I'll finish with this. The holidays are associated with simcha, with rejoicing, as is the celebration of a wedding, and Shabbat is associated with oneg. It's a different kind of joy. The Musar master, Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe, teaches that simcha is not about acquiring something, oneg is not about acquiring something new, but rather becoming aware of the goodness and holiness and beauty that were already present in the world, but perhaps went unnoticed. The Ishbitzer Rabbi, a Hasidic master, asks, what is the difference between oneg, which is delight, and simcha, which is joy? And he says, simcha is when you get something you didn't have before. But oneg is when God shows you what you've had all along. So Ariella and Ethan, may you share a life with abundance, lishma, the joy of simcha, the delight of oneg, and the blessings of a welcoming Shabbat table.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.